I don't recall. Hi, everyone. I don't recall if Hunter could come, but I know Alan can't. And I didn't know about Liz. You do have quorum, though, if you wanted to get started.
Hunter is coming. She'll be here shortly.
All right. I believe, let's call the meeting order at 6:48 p.m. We've got Erica, Constance, Hunter, and Laura here as SAB members. And then Garrett and Miranda. That's what I see. I did see someone on here a minute ago, and I thought that was for the Bobcat Ridge presentation. Did we maybe lose him?
Yeah, I'm not really sure why, but that was Michael with the Bobcat Ridge team.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I noticed that his said it had low bandwidth, so he might have just lost his internet.
Ah, okay.
I'm happy to get started on the next agenda item, and once he pops in, we can go back to him.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, if that's good with everyone else.
Okay. Let's see here. Let me try to share my screen, and I'll show you. So the agenda item is Sustainability Coordinator Transition Review. So just an update on sort of where all of my work items and what are those next steps, making sure that nothing gets dropped. So let's see here. I'll just share Chrome. So you should be able to get, I sent the link in the chat, and that's on the SAB drive. Let's see if I can kind of scroll out a little bit. So yeah, the big one is the Nederland Green Business Program.
It's Michael or somebody.
Michael, are you back? Great. Let's let me stop sharing, and Michael can go on with his topic. Michael,
hi, everybody.
Perfect.
Is Michael there, or this is Kayla? I just got on. I had one wrong number in my access code, so I had to go back and turn my computer on and do the thing again. And I apologize for the delay, everybody.
No problem. We're just getting started. You guys go ahead.
Okay. So I'm here, Kayla Evans, to represent and to update you guys on the Bobcat Ridge project that we have proposed. And for those of you who don't know anything about the process of the project that we've been working on for about 9 years now, I hope you got the packets a little bit from Miranda to give you a bit of an overview. Certainly, it has changed somewhat from the beginning to where it is now. And I think the main thrust of our proposal is that we see a need. There's a need for affordable housing in this community. There's a need for just housing in this community. And we are trying to fill that need in a way that is inclusive, that prioritizes local people, that whenever we see a problem, that is, I mean, not like the town of Nederland has any problems, but to sort of, wow, we could put that over there and solve that problem. Wow, we can be a lot of things to a lot of people, and as the project morphs, we certainly want to have community input into what you all think would be a good idea. Right now, what we're doing is we are proposing two buildings of, and Michael can correct me on this, I think 17 apartments each, either 15 or 17, and those are affordable housing units. Then there's a group of townhomes that we would sell at market rate to help finance the other buildings. We've also added a early childhood learning or daycare facility there for not only the need of our community, which is dire for any kind of kids. If those of you in this, I don't know who all's in the SAB group, so it's hard to address that, understand the need for childcare in our community. We also then look at it as on Saturdays and Sundays, it can be used as a drop-off daycare for the ski area, because they used to have that option up there years ago, but they ran out of space, and so they no longer offer that to their clientele. Well, what a wonderful way we could help with that. So housing is there's a need, and you all have lived in town for X amount of time. You know what it's like to try and find a place, rent a place, buy a place, afford a place. All of those things are becoming more and more critical. And so I would like to open this up to questions for you guys, because I'm not sure exactly. When I met with Eric, when Michael and I met with Eric a couple weeks ago, one of our trustees, I asked him, I said, who would he suggest we talk to get you to understand and to get the word out a little bit more and start this conversation? And he suggested your board as one of them. Why there's a push now is that, for those of you, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that the IGA with Boulder County expires this March. And in that process of either renegotiating, letting it expire, or amending, we would love to see, if it expires, that's one thing. If they up the IGA, that there's at least something in there that talks about the ability for the town to have the power to annex themselves without Boulder County being involved. And so I'd like to get your feedback and discuss this with you. This is something that we look at this project as an asset to the town that will not be there in 5 years, that it'll be there in 50 or 60 or 70 or 100 years. So building something permanent that will help with the needs of our community is very important. That's a priority for us. Everybody that's involved in the group that I'm working with in Bobcat Ridge are local people. Michael lives up here. He lives on Ridge Road. His son is a junior in the high school here. Henry Zerberg was on the fire board for years and years and years. He has a company called Cemetery Building, and Henry's been one of the consultants with me since day one when we started this process about 9 years ago. And Maria Radiditz, she and her husband, they live in Boulder. She grew up in Boulder. She's very aware of the housing needs in this community and is a lover of Nederland, as we all are. So I'm going to open it up to some questions. I'm sure you all have them, and if there are things that you want to qualify more specifically, Michael will jump in with, he's my numbers guy and figure guy, and would love to have him involved in the conversation. So I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you. And again, we'd love to just move forward with this in a way that complements our community. So questions, anybody?
I have a question
Nobody.
for the group here. The question I have is, I'm not sure, Miranda had received some materials and she was kind enough to pass those out to the trustees and the other group that we have met with, but I'm not sure if this group has actually seen the materials or the proposal. Has anyone seen that stuff come across their email?
So I did send it out, Michael, but I know recently we ran into a couple issues with the listserv, and so I'm actually not sure if this team received it. So I don't know
Oh,
if you wanted to share screen. I can forward it to everyone, but I don't know if you wanted to
Got
share
it.
screen.
I got it, Miranda.
Okay. I don't know. Did everyone else get it?
I didn't.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and send a copy. But then, Michael, if you have them open, you're welcome to share screen at the bottom, or I can, however you
I
want to play
appreciate
that.
that. I don't have it open right now. I've actually traveled on the East Coast with my family for the holiday here. But you know, Kayla had it generally correct that we have a couple components to this proposal where we really took a look at what town's needs were and how could this particular area and project fulfill the highest level needs. And so thank you so much, Miranda. That's a nice picture. The building you're looking at closest to the road on the right is an outdoor education and early education center for use as daycare, among other things. The road to the right is the road on the way to the high school and the middle school, which is just up around the bend there. Behind us in this picture is Peak to Peak Highway, just a few hundred yards. And so what we're looking at is the entrance to Bobcat Ridge from down on the road. The community fits into a draw that's hidden very well. So you can't see the whole thing from down on the road. And this area was dug out originally for use as the Gross Reservoir, the dam.
No, Barker.
The Barker Reservoir, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Barker Dam was originally dug out and intended to be put in here. So there is a natural depression and a lot of excavation had been done years and years ago. And we've managed to fit all of what we're proposing into about 10 acres here. The total property portion of which the eastern 8 acres we have proposed to be gifted to the town of Nederland for preservation, for wildlife corridor, for use as wind power collection, solar power. It would really be up to the town and the people interested to figure out what to do on that land. But we are very sensitive to preservation and environmental aspects of this. So we wanted to reserve some land so that we could really create and protect some of these elements. It's also worth noting that, you know, Kayla's family has owned the Arapaho Ranch for many years, which I think the total is over 600 acres worth. And that land has a conservation easement on it, which would be right of the road across the street from the high school and middle school here. So the 8 acres in addition, plus the 600 acres, there's a tremendous amount of area reserved for nature and for preservation. So what we took a look at and really suggested we do is early education and childcare was one of those main components. We wanted to provide as much affordable housing and assisted housing as we can. We wanted to do this as a mixture of property that was managed by the Boulder County Housing Authority. Housing and Human Services Housing Division would be the proper name for that. I'll refer to them as the Housing Authority for now. So Caleb was right. We have roughly 17 units in each of a building for 4% tax credits, and that we want the Housing Authority to manage. And then we have another building with another 17 units that we want the town of Nederland to use as its own local affordable and assisted housing resource. So we could prioritize locals, and we could prioritize school teachers and seniors and municipal workers and police officers. And right now, we're very geared towards providing as much help to those categories and some others that we can. So in order to help finance and fund this, we also have a series of townhomes that are built up into the draw towards the trails. You know, the West Magnolia Trail system is really the upper boundary of this property. You know, we propose to do this not all at once, but over several different phases. So it wouldn't all happen at the same time, but we really wanted to get going with the two affordable and assisted housing buildings, as well as the daycare, the early education center, because I think that's really, we decided that from listening to town and working with people over the years, that was in greatest need. And in order to be able to do that and to generate the funds that we would need to provide rental assistance and to provide scholarships for the education building, we would build townhome units going up into the draw and up and around, hidden generally from view down below. So other components of this would include making a bike path that went from the school towards the eastern edge of our property, the Bobcat Ridge property, which is very close. It's the town limit is the eastern edge of the property currently. The issue right now is that Boulder County zoning has been obstructing our ability to move forward with this project as there's an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Nederland and Boulder. And Boulder has been using this property and opportunity as a bit of a linchpin or a negotiating point, preventing the town from being able to annex this property and receive the resources we're talking about. And so we're a little wrapped up in the idea that we really need to be annexed into town so that we could negotiate the ability and the zoning that we need. The county has always maintained very strict control over the properties that they have, and they've just simply otherwise refused to allow any forward motion on this particular project without annexation into the town of Nederland. So there's a couple ways that could happen. One, the IGA is due to expire in a few months, this spring, 2022. Which for legislation into the town of Ned, or if town is successful in renegotiating the IGA with Boulder, that this annexation could be part of that and allowable under a new IGA and renegotiation. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is that we very much are looking forward to the property being annexed. We're a little bit stuck on the fact we're in Boulder County, and the county is in process of trying to regain control over the town of Nederland. And it's a difficult position, but we'd met with a couple of the trustees involved with that negotiation and feel super comfortable, very intelligent people. And we just wanted a chance to talk with some of the other committees and decision makers in town about what this is and how it could benefit and help town so that we gain support. And that.
So we'd love to throw it open to questions that you might have.
How many townhouses are part of this project, Kayla?
I believe is it 35, Michael, or 35 or 40 in clusters of 3 or 4?
Mm-hmm. We have proposed a total of 40 townhome units that are very intimate and smaller in size, and they're a mixture of 3, 4, and 5 attached dwelling unit buildings, and they go up into the draw so that they are naturally screened and contained into just a little more than half this total property. And it's our proposal that we are protecting by giving to the town about 8 acres of land where we did not dig for the dam previously that has the bulk of the old growth and the wildlife really accessing that. The particular area that we would like to work in is already dug out, and they were apparently unable to find bedrock and couldn't secure the dam, so that we have learned that it's glacial deposit and doesn't really have ground, doesn't have bedrock in the way. So it makes sense. All of these buildings are proposed dug into the hillsides and really given a lot of time and attention to visual mitigation and minimizing wildlife impact. We hired one of the best architects and probably the most notable or famous architect doing affordable housing, first in Colorado, but Tom has really grown all over the world as an expert in that. The architect's name is Tom Lyons. You were looking a moment ago at a rendering and drawing that he had created after working together, and he's a member of our group, as is the founder of the Housing Authority in Boulder, Cindy Brown, has also helped us put all of these elements, units, and models together for this. So she retired, and her mentee, Willa Williford, had taken over the housing division. And we were told that we were in position to gain tax credits to help this move forward when Willa had taken maternity leave and then ultimately resigned right as we were presenting to CHAFA and succeeding with getting Nederland as the affordable housing resources. And the new person that came in working for Boulder, literally the week that we went down and presented, had started. And I think that the county, the housing authority, got wind of us about to be successful and decided they really wanted to put a project in Nederland, and they really didn't want Nederland to have their own local affordable housing resources. So it became, in my opinion, competitive with this project. And personally, I'm happy that they've succeeded with providing some support and some housing for Tungsten Village. But it's also my understanding there's only a few locals that actually are in there, and the rest of the people have been otherwise shipped up the hill and don't know what they're in for. They're not currently weren't previously part of our community.
That was my understanding. Is the fact that Boulder County Housing would be having control of 17 of the units kind of a negotiating factor? And would that be the same thing? Where their list of Boulder County people that are waiting to find an affordable place would be used to fill that?
Yes, is our belief and hope that the Housing Authority can bring some things in here using 4% tax credits that we as locals wouldn't necessarily be able to. And I do think it's a good idea to have a flow of new people into the community. And at the same time, we wanted to reserve the other building in 17 units exclusively for locals, key members, police, seniors, folks that otherwise would, have a hard time and bounce out of the mountains, who are currently part of our community. So my son's a junior right now, and I've watched a number of principals and assistant principals and teachers for which the kids really grow attached to, good educators and good administrators. And after 2 years of trying to get up the canyon in the wintertime, they just can't be licensed, taking jobs elsewhere, down in Boulder, elsewhere, around the state. And it's really hard on the kids. So a number of these units are very well designed and reserved for kind of getting the best of both worlds there, where the Housing Authority, we would like to negotiate to come in and take management and control. And then the other building would be reserved for more local assisted housing, for which we're not subject to the federal rules and regulations that they are. And at the same time, we've been working with Emergency Family Assistance Association, who has asked to either purchase, fund, or reserve something like 6 units for their group they had been trying to develop projects and properties around successfully in Lyons, but it's very difficult for them. And we have a connection with the head of that organization, Julie Van Doleen. Julie was just by happenstance also the mayor of Lyons while their IGA expired, and successfully renegotiated for the town of Lyons a different agreement that allowed Lyons to annex properties, and they have successfully installed cooperative projects with the housing authority in the same manner that I'm describing now to you.
Well, thank you, Michael and Kayla, so much for all your hard work over many years to try to move this forward and help with the needs of the community.
Well,
It's
anyone who is interested, we're more than happy to augment this conversation with, I mean, I know there's a certain amount of time you need to get on with your meeting, and there's so much more to this project that time is a constraint, and we understand that we'd love to be able to pass on to you to understand it better. But we appreciate the time, we appreciate the interest, and hopefully we've started the conversation going in a way that is positive and forward moving.
I had a quick question. So,
Sure.
looking back in my email, I don't know, Michael, if we talked with you at the time, but I know Henry was part of the conversation. In 2017, we talked about Bobcat Ridge and the potential for a large solar farm or some kind of community solar garden. And so we're just curious, that's a big goal for Nederland to hit their renewable energy targets. And kind of just wondering where you guys were at with that, and if this 8 acres could be a good spot for potentially 1 megawatt array, which is something that we've been looking for a while.
I'd love to answer that, Kayla. Is it okay?
Sure.
Yes. The 8 acres could be used for a variety of purposes, including wind and solar generation. All of these buildings, I've developed a number of buildings and homes that are effectively net zero homes, meaning that they have solar systems up on the roof that generate more electricity than the buildings consume. And then the excess electricity is connected to the electrical grid and effectively flows backwards and could provide additional solar power, let's say, to the school most nearby or other homes in the area. So absolutely, sustainability of energy, as well as the long-term sustainability of the buildings themselves. My background history, I've been doing this a very long time in a variety of different places, and I've done a lot of nonprofit work in addition to regular types of commercial and residential building and development. But I have grown to look at all buildings as a form of needing to be healthcare buildings. And power is one of those components of sustainability that's very important to our group. So absolutely, we have plans to put solar power electricity on top of all of the buildings that we're making. And then we wanted to provide land for a town to use, ideally for a combination of wind and there's room for a solar farm up there as well.
Is the 8 acres flat, Michael?
The 8 acres goes up the hill. It's not necessarily flat. I don't think the whole 8 acres makes sense to use as a solar farm, but there's certainly some areas that are very suitable and higher up into the sun. Let's see all day sun. And the top of the buildings, once we get up a little, make use of solar electricity. And so we have positioned a number of the buildings to face different aspects during different times of the day. So there's a continuous flow of power as well. Does that answer that question okay?
Yeah, so I guess to clarify, to flesh it out, are you intending to build a solar farm on all of these rooftops because you guys will be the developers for all of them?
Yes, it's part of our plan to provide solar power collection system as part of the roof systems here. And so there's various ways that that happens, and we haven't selected a specific system yet. We're still really talking about what makes most sense now. When we started this like 8, 9 years ago, there were technologies at the time that we had defined pretty well as wanting to use, but things have changed, and there's actually some better systems that we're investigating now to put up.
Garrett, is it possible to do a full system on multiple rooftops like that? I can imagine you need like an HOA or something like that to manage it.
That's right. There will be an HOA. In fact, that the property may very well need to be subdivided into components to allow for, say, the housing authority to manage under their particular system versus the town of Nederland managing the housing assistance units. So when we developed this whole thing, it was developed for all of these buildings to work together under some common agreement or common association. And then with respect to the technology, it's absolutely available to us today for each individual building to have its own individual solar system, which then twines down into a grid and all collectively feeds the power line backwards. That power can be routed. It's really a demand-based system so that in the event it was cloudy for some time or that the buildings needed to draw power on a specific day, say during a storm, and then the sun came back out and then the units would be generating more power than they need. The power flow would automatically go either up into the buildings on demand or back down into the grid once there was excess. So the switching the technology for that is actually very well defined and pretty straightforward to do. It has a cost, of course, but we're modeling all of this into our project.
And just jump in real quick, understand that because of the location, we're between the high school and the county road where there are bus stops at both ends, but our hope is to have RTD be able to just pull off on their way back into town from going up to the ski area, stopping at the high school, and then continuing on into town, and have a bus stop there. So you wouldn't even necessarily need to have an automobile to live there, but certainly we're thinking of this project not only to suit the needs of today, but looking down the road. If we all think back how much our town and technology has changed in 10 years, what do you think it's going to be like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years to have solar charging stations for automobiles that are there in the, and I'm going to throw this one out and we don't have time to really go into talking to you about it, but our plan is to put underground parking under the 2 apartment buildings that would be able to service all of the, the hikers that come up and park at the high school for HESI parking. And, in the summer, it's crazy out there. Now there's a place that they can park, and the parking, we would charge them, creating funds to create a shuttle that for local people, they can ride in and go around town. So there's multiple things that we could keep explaining to you that are components for this project that I think are really important, but it's almost like we're giving you too much information. It's like, whoa, all at once. We've lived with it for 9 years. You're just getting this in 20 minutes. And understanding all of the different aspects of how we think we can solve problems that we have in the community by putting them in a place that is beautiful. And so again, I would be more than happy, as would Michael, to go into deeper conversations with you all or individually about different things that we think are important components to this project that enhance it more and more and more and provide more and more services and more answers to a lot of the questions we have in our town.
And that's true. If any of you want to get together,
thanks for letting me jump in.
Of course, if any of you want to get together and talk more about specific components like the solar array or aspects of how that we could implement, a best system, Happy to talk about that from our perspective, what we know, but we're also wide open to suggestions and ideas that each of you have about how best to do that too. So we very much want to make this a two-way conversation. And with respect to, the overall sustainability and the best, most effective systems, Kayla was kind of talking about how this works down the road, modular systems that could be changed out with new technology, or how we could accommodate the solar systems to then provide charging back to cars or charging stations in town. Certainly happy to make ourselves available and get together. You can contact us, anytime, collectively, individually. Kayla's a point of contact. I'm a point of contact, and we're happy to do that more.
Just quickly, what is the process moving forward for you guys, and how can the SAB sort of kept in the loop, especially when it comes to energy and energy efficiency? I think that's a critical aspect of some of our sustainability goals. And so I know it's early on, and it sounds like a lot of these designs are, still underway. And so I think that would be best if we could just keep in the loop on sort of the progress being made.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I love that idea, and we're wide open to the idea that you may very well have information that will benefit us. And so just being in the loop, we're very open to that. Communication is wide open anytime. Kayla and I both live kind of close to town, and we're in town very often. And, really right now we're stuck on this idea of needing to be annexed into the town of Nederland. And once that looks like it can happen, then we negotiate an annexation agreement with the town, which then provides for more specific components of the things that we need to be installed. So one of the things, for instance, that we would need is we would need appropriate, zonings and permissions from the town of Nederland to be able to put these systems in and how they might work. And we very much welcome all of your individual and collective participation in how to do that. So, staying in touch with us by email and asking questions and for more information, showing interest in that way. I really think that the buildings themselves make the best pedestals for energy collection. Wind power could be installed without actually disrupting this 8 acres as a wildlife corridor. But I would be a little bit hesitant to try to, trade out any of the old growth forest for solar collection if there was another way to do that. And so some of this is really about balancing priorities, for which we would love your input.
And understand that the weather, if you've all looked for the next, I think we have a week's worth of above normal, crazy, beautiful, warm weather before we start to get some snow. When Michael gets back into town in the next day or so, we're more than happy to go out on the property with anybody interested and give you a physical picture of where it is, what it is, how it lays into the topography of the land, and it makes way more sense when you actually put your feet on the ground.
Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, Kayla, so I'm around later this week if anybody wants to go for a walk up there.
Kayla, that would be
anybody...
fantastic if we could do a field trip with you guys. Because I'd really like to talk more about the wind potential. It's pretty windy in that corridor.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be great to see the land and to see what you guys are thinking.
And there's a ridge that comes up above where our buildings are that's unobstructed views up to the, the peaks. And so the ridge that's above where our development is proposed makes a great candidate, in my opinion. So,
questions? Anybody? Are we good?
Could you guys put maybe your emails in the chat for us?
Oh, sure.
Miranda, can you do that?
I think I can do it.
I can email it. And just a reminder, if you set up the field trip, if there's more than 2 of you, you need to publicly notice it. So just keep me posted on how many people end up going.
I'm going to put my personal email in here, and you can contact me anytime through that.
Thank you.
Would other staff members be interested in a field trip? I'm thinking if we could get more than 2, it would be great, and it just publicly post it. And if
I
residents-
would be interested in doing that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I would be interested for sure.
I love hiking up around that area, so even if it doesn't work for everybody at once, we could do 2 or groups or however that works out. So you can email me or text me or just call me really anytime.
Do you want to just, because we're all together, do you want to just try to find a time really quick before we then have to jump into the email? The challenge, Michael, is like they can't email back and forth, so I think you should make the most of this time and pick your field trip date and time.
Friday this week works for me pretty well, and I need to get back to go any further than that in my schedule, I'm afraid. But I do know that I'm open on Friday during the day this week.
I'm good up until the time I have to go run the movies.
Can at least a group do Friday?
I could do Friday late afternoon.
Is that time enough for a notice, Miranda?
Yeah, I just need 24 hours. But that's only
Oh, okay.
Erica. So can anyone else go on Friday? Afternoon?
Yes, this is Hunter. I could do Friday.
Hunter? Melody, could you do Friday?
I cannot do Friday, but that's all right.
Okay. We'll save you for another day. Constance and Laura, what about you?
I could do Friday.
And I cannot.
Okay, so what if I'm just gonna pick a time? Do you guys want to aim for like 3? Michael, thoughts about that?
Good for me.
Great.
Yeah.
What
that
time
work?
did you want to do it?
Let's do it at 3. And then where does the group want to meet? Where was easy? I don't know where you ended up meeting everyone, Michael and Kayla, when you did Eric
We met Eric at the water treatment plant.
Did that work well?
Yeah, that's okay. Because you can access the back part of everything there. That works fine.
So does everyone know where that is? As you're heading towards the school, it's immediately on your left-hand side. It's like a tan building through some gates.
It's before the school, the high school.
Right. It's right before the school. Do people know where that is?
Just to the east of the school.
I know where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we'll do is I'll let Public Works know too, so you can actually park in the gates. And then Kayla and Michael can meet you there.
Great.
Cool.
Well, thank you. We've taken up half of your meeting time. We apologize. No, we don't. We don't apologize. I'm glad you wanted to listen to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope everyone had a safe and happy and friend and family filled holiday, and we just appreciate this very much. So thank you so much, and thank you, Miranda, for helping facilitate.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and email ProSab too in case they want to jump in, since I'm going to have to notice it anyways.
Great.
If they want to jump in on this tour.
Super.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, signing off. We'll see those, hopefully as many of you as you can on Friday.
Super.
Bye.
Okay, Miranda, thank you. Michael, thank you. Thank you to Sab. We appreciate you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great evening. All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts on that or anything they want to talk about that SAB wise? I think Liz had mentioned in the chat that maybe we want to invite them back to another meeting. How do we want to kind of move forward with this? Hearing it now.
Well, it sounds great. I'm especially interested in the details on what the age range would be for the childcare that they're proposing to provide, and then some more details on what sounds like assisted living. I feel like people on both ends of the spectrum in our town need that kind of support, but I'd like to know more than just, hey, we're going to do this. I'd like to know if they have any details there.
Melody, would this project get a sustainability scorecard? Would that follow that process?
Yeah, I think so. I guess my question is probably for Miranda as far as in order for this to happen, they have to be annexed into town first, and that's kind of the first major sticking point, and or they have to have enough support to somehow get rezoned in Boulder County, which, you know, I'm sure is a lot less feasible than getting annexed. So how do we go about trying to support that?
I think that you're exactly right. So really they have to get the annexation piece and they're putting the work in. And so I think as we monitor when that ends up going before the board, that would be the time in which we'd want SAB to weigh in. And so I think it's just a matter of kind of keeping your pulse on how this moves forward. And I'm happy to provide an update at each meeting, just letting you know where they stand. But it is a little bit in limbo at the moment. However, tomorrow we actually have our first negotiation session with Boulder County on the IGA, and I think that'll be really telling on what happens next with Bobcat Ridge.
And do you have a general feeling that the IGA will be renegotiated, just we're not sure what it looks like yet? Or do you feel like there's enough of a sticking point that they might not renegotiate it?
The entire board wants to keep but renegotiate, and the renegotiation is really allowing Nederland with a bit more control over annexation. So that's what I foresee coming out of that, and I do think that we could get a draft turned around before it expires in March.
Miranda, it sounds like the board, the BOT, isn't concerned that it will impact utilities like water treatment, that we can handle it.
Yes, I mean, Chris and I met about this a while ago, and yes, we can handle it. However, we strongly feel that any sort of large development of this size needs to pay some form of a development fee, a little bit of a pay your way type situation. Because they obviously will have PIFs, but this is a bit more of an impact than just what PIFs can offset. So when someone annexes, they'll have to have a development agreement that basically it's the opportunity to negotiate things like that. And I think we'd be looking for a one-time fee that maybe could help offset the cost of a future water or wastewater infrastructure development, which will come no matter what. But this would just help us financially with that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to throw out to folks, maybe wind has changed, but typically wind turbines are not very successful in high speeds. The quick data I just searched from University of North Carolina was really above 60 miles per hour. They really have to shut off. And so, so I don't know if that's really something we should put our hat on as far as renewable energy option for that area.
And Erica, I just want, quickly, I think there's been some new advancement. Like, I don't know if you've seen the one in Rollinsville, for instance, but there's different designs that actually can be pretty effective, like especially in coastal areas that also have very high erratic winds. So I think there's been some solutions, especially vertical axis wind turbines. So I don't think I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there. But I think there may be solutions if if we wanted to go with that instead of solar or something like that.
And on the energy efficiency side, the codes that were passed just a month ago, that was for single family homes. They're not going to have to abide by the stringent codes that we passed. They're going to abide by just 2018 building codes, which are good, not great. So, if I were you, I would ask them to go beyond that. Maybe look at the 2021 building codes. It seems like they think more sustainably, so that might be an easier sell to them. Same with electric vehicle chargings, like they're not required to do any of that, but we should make them do some of that. It sounds like, based on the conversation, that they're already thinking about it. So we just want to make sure that that actually happens.
Well, and that could also be part of the conditions of approval in the development agreement. I think you have to have so many EV chargers per new parking space in a parking lot. But Boulder County is going to require that they put in EV chargers.
But if it's annexed by the town, then they're following town rules, and we don't have those rules.
Oh, I see. Right.
But you're right, Boulder County has those rules. So if we can enforce Boulder County's rules when applicable, then I think that'd be great.
That's where it all comes down to that development agreement, though. The great thing about that is whether something's in code or not in code, it's the board's opportunity to say, despite code not having this requirement, we are, for your specific development, going to enforce it.
The other thing I wanted to throw out there was this wildlife corridor, which has been a point of contention for this development for the last few years. So we didn't have time to really talk about that, but just something to keep in mind if we have future conversations with them.
Yeah, and perhaps the U.S. Forest Service would better be able to help that conversation, and maybe Hunter, with Eldora just being down the road, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with the U.S. Forest Service on potential expansion ideas too. It would be good to get their perspective.
Well, just when we work with the Forest Service all the time because we lease Forest Service land and we're required to do surveys. So like for our parking lot expansion, we've had to do owl survey, goshawk survey, bat survey. So again, the town could ask for these things as conditions of approval for the development. So.
Yeah, and maybe the county can help, Miranda, just like why is the county so hesitant on letting them build this, right? Like what does the county know that the town doesn't know? The county obviously has wildlife experts, and so could they provide some resources to help the town?
Yeah, if we were to move forward, the thing is they don't have an active application. And so once they do, then they pay a series of fees to kind of cover town needing to bring in different resources. I think that would be premature to do now because we don't even know if they're going to file. But yes, that would be a requirement for their annexation application.
So that at least through the county requires, so they basically review the application and then they're like, we'd like more information on this wildlife corridor. And then they would have to pay for a survey to submit to the county and submit to the town. And then at that point, the county can come back and say, okay, well, the other thing is you can't do development during certain times of the year because of nesting. And so, again, the town can request the survey information in response to the application once the application's received. It's like an ongoing conversation with, at least in Eldora's case, we're constantly talking to the county back and forth about, different projects. But even as the seasons change, the requirements change. So at some point, they're going to have to do a number of surveys.
Okay, well, Miranda, can you just keep us updated on where the board is at in all this and how this kind of first negotiations meeting goes? And then I guess at some point we'll probably want to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. I don't know if it's helpful for us to put together kind of letter to the county or anything too.
again, I think it's all going to be dependent on when they pull the application together. I don't think it makes sense to do that now.
Yeah.
But again, we just don't really know. Another option for them when it comes to annexation is to skip the application process altogether and put it on the ballot. And now I don't foresee them doing that, but it's always an option. So I think what they're doing right now is weighing out their support between the ProSab and the Board of Trustees. And if they feel like they have enough support, they won't put it in the hands of the voters, but that could be something they choose to do down the line, because they have done applications before that have fallen through. So I'm also kind of just monitoring them. You can tell, or at least I can tell, they're kind of in a fact-finding stage right now. And so I think we all just sit tight until we know what their intentions are.
All right. Any other SAB members have any other kind of final thoughts on this topic before we move on to Garrett?
Elodie, one last thing. Just, I'm sure I've mentioned this, but in 2017, Bobcat Ridge approached the SAB board. Jennifer Morse and I had a conversation, at least with Henry. I don't think Michael was there, and another person, and they were very seriously looking at developing a solar array, a garden, a large array, and being the developers for that solar investment, that project. And so it's just something to keep in mind as this conversation continues, because that could be a slam dunk for us as far as having flat land. And again, we have to see what else is available outside of that 8 acres. But if there was a way to even look at that 600 acres of preservation that's part of the Arapaho Ranch, I just don't know the whole picture, but I think it's worth keeping that in the back of our minds.
Yeah, I agree. And I think at the point in time where they can actually go through this annexation process, that's where we kind of hold the linchpin to be able to say, we only recommend approval if they agree to these projects. And if we can stay in contact with them between now and then, and just kind of bounce these ideas off them and keep them thinking on them, and kind of, it seems like we can get their agreement on most of it, but we need to make sure that the benefits of that and the benefits of the housing development are portrayed in a way that doesn't just disregard the fact that we are taking up forests to now build all these things. I think that might be a sticking point, like you were bringing up earlier with the wildlife corridor. Is okay, we're going to build a bunch of buildings and then we're going to put a solar farm on it. What is that going to look like, and how do we kind of talk to people about it as we go forward to get that support behind it. So
who owns this property now? Is this Kayla's property that they would be building on?
yes.
And to follow up on that solar discussion, so I'm just maybe not familiar, but can you actually do individual buildings and use those rooftops as a larger array and really sell it as a 1 megawatt system?
So I didn't really quite understand that, because each unit needs to be metered, right? So you've got electricity coming from the solar panels into that townhome. So that needs to be dedicated to that townhome. I don't know if you can combine them when there is excess energy. I think that's a question, right? Like, if there, like, how much excess energy would there be? I doubt that there's enough excess energy to make a community solar garden worthwhile. But it would be good to get those figures.
All right. Well, I think we can move on to the kind of sustainability coordinator transition. I do want to say, Garrett, we super appreciate everything you've done for us. We're so grateful to have had you for this long, and I know that you've probably put together some great documents for whoever steps in to keep going. So thank you.
Yeah, and like I told Miranda last week, I'm not going very far. I'm going to Broomfield, and what's nice about all these municipalities is, you know, we help each other out. So if you guys have any questions, please reach out. Whatever you do with the next sustainability coordinator, I would hope to, you know, come up in Nederland and meet with them and just talk to them and tell them what's going on and what I was thinking on some of these things. So I'm certainly not trying to leave you guys dry. So yeah, but I did put together some real basic documentation to show you sort of how things are transitioning. So we've got a lot of other town staff picking up the ball until at least we figure out what the next when the next sustainability coordinator will be starting. So the Nederland Green Business Program, that's gonna be picked up by the town clerk, Macy. So I'll be meeting with her. And so you guys have this document, it's in the chat, it's on the SAB Google Drive. I think Chris, sorry, there's quite a few rows and now you guys probably can't see it. So climate action planning with Shannon. She's that Western Colorado University graduate student. She's working on some project scope document. And so Chris is going to be the point of contact for her. There are various meetings that I attend that are going to be transitioning to other town staff. So I don't really need to go through too much of that. Climate, so CC4CA, Erica, Alan, you guys will be the primary point of contact on that. I don't think you really need Miranda or Chris, but if you do, please let them know. Hunter, there's nobody from town assigned to be attending that subcommittee meeting, but if you need help from Miranda or Chris, Miranda's said to reach out to them.
Okay. In case I can't like attend a meeting or.
Yeah, with whatever you need. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I probably will reach out to you, Miranda, just because I have a few questions on just prioritizing.
Yeah, we weren't really sure exactly what you needed. So if you need us, we're here.
Okay.
So yeah, let's just set up a time and we'll connect.
Okay. Thanks.
There's a really good group. These are this is the Partners in Energy and Energy Future. These are for like communities that have you know, participated in those Partners in Energy programs, and so this is a really good meeting. But it is only unfortunately for municipalities. I know Erica, we tried to get you on there. But I am going to have Miranda and Chris try to participate in those because those are other municipalities along the Front Range, and they've got their own renewable energy targets. And so Miranda and Chris will do that. The Zero Waste grant that was submitted a couple weeks ago, we applied for, I don't know the dollar amount off the top of my head, but recyclable to-go-ware for food establishments. Macy, who is the town clerk, she's sort of on the business side. She works with a lot of the businesses, so it sort of just makes sense for that to go into her realm. Soul Smart bronze designation, we're still pursuing that. Cynthia's working on a checklist, and we're going to be working on adopting an ordinance. And Cynthia and Miranda will be working on that as well. Community solar development, we talked a lot about that with the Bobcat Ridge. There are a few other private land opportunities. The link is in this document. That really, I'd like first off an energy subcommittee to be formed. We've talked about it, but I don't think we've actually made one yet. So, but Miranda and I were talking like that would probably be a good task for that energy subcommittee. Climate emergency resolution, Erica and I, we've been kind of putting that together. And so I think it's really Erica and Alan, you know, presenting that to the SAB and getting that to the BOT. And the next one is the Energy Subcommittee. So I think it would be great if the SAB could nominate someone to be the liaison to that subcommittee, and that committee can start getting kicked off. I think Erica, Alan, Melody, and Constance all shown interest in participating in that group. So yeah, that's a high level of all the things that I was sort of doing, or the meetings that I was participating in. And so we've got a mixture of staff assigned to them, or hopefully an energy subcommittee can be formed for a couple of them as well. Are there any other questions, or any questions about any of these things?
Garrett, I just wanted to thank you for your hard work and service. I really appreciate everything I've learned from you, and thanks so much for your time helping Nederland.
Thanks, Liz.
I want to second that, Garrett, because I think before you were working with us, we had a lot of things going on, but it wasn't as clear and wasn't as systematic. And just looking at all of these meetings that you're attending on a regular basis and then reporting back to us, this makes me a little anxious thinking about you leaving, having to step into these roles. So again, like, so much gratitude. I'm glad you're not going very far away.
Nope, I'm not. Thankfully, it's a very short commute for me, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, please reach out. I would love to hear from you guys. So yeah.
Congratulations, Garrett, on your new position, and thank you so much for all that you've done to help us out. I have one quick addition maybe to this list. See what you guys think, but the Boulder Valley School District is having nominations right now for SAB members to join them, and if someone would nominate me, I'd be willing to go to those meetings. Because I think that if we have a liaison to the BOT, a liaison to the schools, a liaison to Eldora, we're dealing with a lot of the bigger entities in town, and kind of knowing what's going on with them and their sustainability.
So can you say a little bit more about what it takes to nominate you? I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, there's an email link, and I can forward it to you. I think it's just, well, we could talk about like the specifics of what they need. I haven't looked at it that specifically yet, but I know that it's an online form, and you can't do it for yourself. You have to be nominated. So, we could put our heads together on that and try to get that done.
Do you need more than one nomination?
I don't think so, but if I do, I'll send out an SOS.
Laura, I've got that link. I just put it in the chat. Do you want me to send it
Oh.
to the group?
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, so anyway, I think we can go through this in more detail if you're nominating someone else. I think it'd be better to kind of, well, I'll figure out the details of this and work with Liz on it, and kind of go from there, if that sounds good.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Laura, I think we're all, I'd be happy to send in a nomination for you as well. I think that's really exciting. There's a lot of great
That'd be
stuff
great.
in BVFD.
I think it's good because they're trying to integrate towns, and from the meeting I went to before when they were making their action plan, I think it could help us in Nederland, especially just because there aren't that, they're doing composting, whatever it is, maybe we can join in with them, and we'll know at least what's going on and try to partner with them if we can get someone on that board. So great. Yeah. Anyone who wants to nominate me, that's great. Maybe that'll help. Numerous nominations.
Anything else? Any other questions?
I think the deadline is December 10th for that, by the way.
Anyone have any other questions for Garrett before we don't have him at our meetings anymore?
No, we're just gonna miss you, and
Yeah.
we're totally gonna reach out to you. So just be ready, because
That's fine. You have
We
my
need-
personal email address, so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, Garrett, have you thought about how you're going to handle all the people who come your way? Or are you just going to like just repeat yourself over and over again of like, please email so and so?
Yeah, probably. That's,
Okay.
yeah. Oh well.
Okay. Oh well. Sounds good. Well, we can help at all.
Yeah, it's all good.
I guess, Garrett, having worked with Nederland for a few years now, and with Lions before that, like, do you have any advice for us as we move forward without you?
I mean, I think the scorecard, so it's embedding sustainability into the town planning process, and I think the sustainability scorecard helps. You know, I've talked with Trustee Ishmael Coombs about it, and I think the Bobcat Ridge might be a great opportunity. But and I know Shannon Hessler is creating a project scope on sort of best practices to how to implement sustainability planning into small mountain towns. So I think the SAB could use a little bit more help on that side of things. But you know, I think Miranda's doing a good job, and Chris being in the organization, like they've really helped me understand sort of all of the different pieces that are going into town. And so I think just having that culture really helps. And you know, I think the 100% renewable energy goal is mighty difficult, but maybe not 2025, but I think 2030 is realistic. You know, Excel Energy's got their 80%, so you're going to need to find that delta. What's that next 20%? And so holding Bobcat Ridge, maybe that's the 20% that you guys ask for. So you know, and then the energy efficiency, we did a lot of good things with single family homes. But you're not done. You've got commercial and multifamily units. Bobcat Ridge is going to be a commercial building, and so you know, Nederland will have to attack that at some point as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have any sort of advice, but I think hopefully you guys get another sustainability coordinator, and Miranda and Chris, you know, they've been super helpful, and so I think you guys are on the right path.
Thanks, Garrett.
On that note, you want me to kick off that recruitment strategy? Thanks, Garrett. I can kind of kick to that if we're ready. I'm just going to take that as a yes. So I went ahead and sent you all the job description, and now this job description is the same that we used when we hired Garrett. I just kind of tweaked the dates. I do still think it's accurately represents the work being done. Probably not an exhaustive list, but it's still there. And so I think the big thing we need to talk about is timeline. So I sent you the AIM with kind of an option 1 and option 2. And let me just explain myself here. If we are awarded the grant, it makes and we know within a week, it makes option 1 obviously a lot better. What we have here is we asked for more money for the next round of sustainability coordinator year 3 than what we've historically had. And so I think it's important to balance out how much you're paying someone, because you can't pay someone for 2 months at say $1,000 less than what they're going to make the remainder of their time. I think that's concerning. So what we have here is an opportunity to pay the person their set amount, and then either tack on the remaining, I think it's like 1875 or something like that, the remaining kind of 2-week amount, either at the beginning, so we try to hire them in January, which is this option 1, or we tack it on at the end, and we would just ask the person to stay on with us through the 2nd week of March and tack on that overage at the end. I think all of this really depends on whether or not we're awarded the funding and when we find out, because I would hate to recruit for someone at a yearly rate of $33,750, only to find out that we're only able to pay them what town was willing to commit to this role. I think it's highly unlikely we're not going to get the grant, but I don't want to gamble. And so it kind of all comes down to how long do we wait to release the job? So I don't know if anyone has some kind of initial feelings on this.
I'll just say I'll just go out there. It's like 95% certain that you would get the grant. Like that's what Boulder County's been saying the whole time, is that Nederland can get this money for 3 years. That's what the Town Alliance did. That's, I don't see, but I understand where you're coming from, but I think it's highly likely.
I mean, I like option 1 way better. Of course, it's, what I would do is change this sentence of town has not been awarded. Try to get a hold of Leah tomorrow if I can, and just see if we can nail her down by next Monday on whether we got the grant, so I could tell the board of trustees, like, this is how we're going to move forward on this job. Because this would have the person starting on the 15th of January, where the other one it's only 15 days later, but the other one does delay. I think we're trying to not have too long of a gap between Garrett and the next person. Again, I don't know how other people are feeling here, but I prefer option 1 if people are comfortable with that. It also is so risky, though. I'd hate to say, like, you're going to make X amount of money, and then for some reason something falls through.
Erica, were you able to find out when the grant would be when we'd find out?
No, there's nothing posted on the website, and there was nothing language pertaining to that in the application process either.
Okay.
I wonder, how long did it take in the years prior? Does anyone remember?
I honestly can't remember. And one thing I thought about this morning is, if you wanted to, we could just leave it in like a whatever happens by Friday. Like, if we don't hear by Friday, we're going with option 2. If we hear by Friday, we'll stick with option 1. I just think it's a bit unfair to post a job and say we're going to pay someone, I can't remember what the amount is, it's like $2,500, and then say we're not able to meet that. There's a lot of people who may not apply for the job if the pay is less.
Miranda, it looks like I have an email Karen sent out in 2020, and we found out December 23rd.
Wow.
I
Well,
think
if people were open to it, I could call Leah, see if there's any way we can find out by Friday. And if we can't find out from Friday, then we just know we're going with option 2. How do people feel about that? Liz, I saw your message come through, but I can't see my chat for some reason.
I think that makes sense also.
Is everyone in support of that? I mean, again, it's only 2 weeks, but.
I agree. Yes, I'm in support of it.
Okay. Does anyone have any feedback on that job description? If there's anything we're missing from prior years?
I haven't had a chance to look through the job description, but I can send you comments.
Cool. If you can give me those by Friday.
Okay.
I mean, this will just go before the board as an FYI. It's just an opportunity to get it out there. And then we'll post the next day. So I can keep you all posted if everyone agrees with kind of that option 1, option 2, being dependent on the grant award date. I can just send you an email on Friday letting you know which route we end up having to go.
Miranda, kind of not a point, but in 2019, we learned November 21st.
Oh. I bet if I call her, we could probably get, so even if it's just an email from her saying like kind of what Garrett is saying, like, yes, we're committed. That would be enough for me to feel good about sticking with that first option 1.
Yeah, Miranda, it depends on the Boulder County Commissioners when they approve the budget, because the zero waste grant that I applied for, that's just contingent on the county commissioners approving next year's budget. So it's not sure if we'll be able to help you out much.
See where they're at with that.
And Miranda, the salary I think is missing a dot on the last page of the job description.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Fix that. You said the last page?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. It's a lot of extra money.
It would be like $281,000.
Great. Are you staying, Garrett?
I might have to
You're like,
reconsider.
You're like, never mind, I've changed my mind. And actually, I just realized I have to change the year. So if we could go option 1, the person would work 2 weeks in January for $1,000 less, and then they would. Again, option number 2 is tacking on those 2 weeks at the end rather than at the front. Okay. I think that's it for me. Then that'll be the plan, and I'll just send you all an email to keep you updated.
Thanks, Miranda. So the next thing on the agenda is this mountain-wide sustainability coordinator position. And Melody, Miranda, and I got together recently to talk about this. And so we wanted to bring it to you guys. The idea we've talked about a few times of having a coordinator that would be mountain community wide, right? Which is kind of what we got in some ways with Garrett working in Lions when he initially started. And this would be something where in the past, the conversation with the county has been we would need to have all of the towns on board for this position. And whether that's their matching grant money, so again, that $15,000 from Ward and Jamestown, and something from Lions, and then being able to fund it that way, but we need to have all the communities on board. And so the conversation has transitioned a bit to, could we just be this hub? You know, Miranda's mentioned that. Could we be the hub and really support this position from Nederland? And if the county would award some funds towards that. Sounds like at this point the county is not there, but we want to explore this conversation more. And so the idea that we landed on was creating a subgroup, perhaps 2 staff board members, that would really start in on this conversation and talking with Ward, talking with Jamestown, talking with Bald Hill and Lions, perhaps even trying to capture this unincorporated Boulder County culture and conversation, and really gather everybody's thoughts, and then again present that to the county and perhaps to Leah, and say, okay, so here's who we've talked to, here's kind of what everyone's concerned about, here's the funds that could be allocated if this position were to move forward, and then take the conversation from there. So what we talked about recently was really having these 2 staff members pursue this conversation and gathering more information on their own, reporting back to the staff board, while also bringing in this mountain coordinator quarterly meeting that Leah hosts. And that was where I first met Garrett, and also met Ken, the mayor of Jamestown, and the mayor of Ward at the time, and really started this conversation started going at that point, and then with some other events as well. So wondering if we could simultaneously take a few different approaches and really see how we can move forward with this conversation. For those of you, that are like, okay, cool, let's do this. we've had this conversation for a few years now, and we haven't necessarily been able to get traction for this mountain-wide position because it seems like it's just hard to get everybody at the same place with, putting their funds towards this position and how would it benefit them. Would it just be Nederland getting the benefit, whatever the concerns are at the time. So I just wanted to present that to you guys, see who may be interested in carrying this conversation forward with these other communities and with these county meetings, if we can attend those. And if anybody has any questions.
I'm wondering, and I missed part of what you said just because my audio isn't great. But you said this would be another person like Garrett, basically, but for mountain one communities. That's the first question. And the second question is, what communities are those? Is there like a geographic boundary or is it pretty open?
Yeah, so this would be Boulder County. And ideally, these would be, in the past, we've talked about communities that are already feeding projects, sustainability projects off of this Boulder County Matching Sustainability Grant. That would probably be the easiest way to fund it. So that would limit us to Boulder County mountain communities. So that would be potentially unincorporated Boulder, so the 4,000 residents in the zip code that aren't in the town. However, we can harness that. That would be Ward and Jamestown. Gold Hill has received matching grant funds, even though they are unincorporated Boulder County. So that would be important to bring them into the fold. They have a sustainability group that's very active. But again, that would be kind of this flexibility in the system that Gold Hill has received in the past, and we'd have to bring that back to Leah and the county to see, okay, so we have these unincorporated residents, could you guys allocate funds from this tax for a position to help think about those folks and really target issues related to all of the mountain communities, not just these small towns. So Constance, that's a great question. So it would be Boulder County specific based on how we've designed it in our heads at this point. It doesn't have to be if we wanted to think outside the box. Estes Park has been involved in conversation, but it has felt like a long way away. It has felt pretty distant. And then, sorry, your second question, did I answer that? Oh, would this be the same position?
Yeah.
Ideally, this would be making our sustainability coordinator full-time. So we could have half for the town of Nederland, half for mountain-wide. Ideally, I mean, if everything was perfect, we had all the resources in the world, we could have a separate coordinator. But at this point, I think we'd have to start with baby steps.
That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying.
Erica, is the is the conversation really about how to fund the position, or sort of the cross needs, cross-sectional needs across all of these different communities? So when you talk with the mayor of Jamestown, should the conversation be focused on, hey, what do you guys need? If there was, say, a Boulder County, if there was a staff person to help you out, like what would this person do, and how might this benefit the larger region? Because the matching funds, I'm not sure that's the best source of money. Because Allen's Park, they host these amazing recycle events. Lions has a bunch of awesome events too, and so I just don't know if I think the conversation should be focused on how can this person do effective mountain sustainability work across these different municipalities, rather than focusing on where the money's coming from. I think it's better to start with, hey, here's here are the opportunities that this person can take advantage of? Or do you feel like they're already there? Do you feel like they're like, okay, yeah, we are in this, yeah, like is Boulder County already in agreement with you, and they're just trying to figure out how to pay for it, or what's that conversation like?
So the conversation a few years ago was there's many different facets because there's different cultures in these communities, right? And so we have to make sure that everyone feels represented, and from the county's perspective, what I've perceived is that they really want to have all these communities buy-in. Like, yes, this position will help us. We want to support it. We have our stamp of approval. And I think that's a really good point, Garrett, is that we do need to base it on a need. Would this position help you, and how could they help you, right? What are the biggest needs in your community? What are the biggest gaps where you could use assistance from a coordinator? Absolutely. But it's also from documents that the county has done over the years, there are things that Ward does really well, and Jamestown does really well, and Ellis Park does really well, and Nederland does really well. And often those are different things for each community. So for example, the construction demolition project that Chris P has pioneered, that's an amazing project that we have that other communities don't necessarily have. Or some communities, have really great recycling numbers for certain products, but not for others. And so, Melody, you'll remember it when Lee from the county came and presented that zero waste analysis, that audit that was done for all the mountain-wide communities. And that's kind of where this idea stemmed from, was we all have these great assets and these challenges. And if we come together, we could really rely on each other with this shared knowledge. And so having this position of shared knowledge where they could really share, like, okay, this is what Ward's working on right now. Oh, wow, well, we worked on that last year. This is what we found. Or cool, like, how did you get your greenhouse, off the ground and operating? Please share with us, what are your best practices? And so I think it's all of the above for it, but I think that's a really good point. Is we've asked the county for funds, and they have said you need everybody on board, basically.
Yeah, I'm worried about, like, you go talk to Ward if you could find somebody to talk to, and they may not understand what the value of having a person doing sustainability work in their community might be. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think there might be some knowledge transfer that might need to happen as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Garrett. I mean, in years past, they've used their Boulder County matching grants for like wastewater treatment upgrades, and really important projects. And it would be tough to take those funds away from a very specific project that they had in mind. But I know this conversation started with the woman who was the mayor when you and I met. What was her name?
I forgot her name.
Miranda, you must know her name.
This was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, she was a powerhouse, super focused on sustainability. And now the conversation in Ward has shifted with new people representing the town, which is great. But the idea of this on the agenda is to really start this conversation again. Of let's reach out to Ward. Let's see what their priorities are. Let's see, would they be interested in this? If so, what does it look like for them? Let's reach out to Jamestown. Let's reach out to Ellis Park. Like, let's start this conversation again and see where everyone's at. Question?
I guess I do want to get a general understanding from the other board members if you feel like, reaching out to these other communities, engaging where they're at, is worth our time. Because if, the SAB doesn't think we should pursue this right now, then perhaps it's not something to do. But we were kind of discussing that Erica and one other SAB member, and maybe that's me if nobody else is interested, could start these conversations with these other communities, and just see where we're at. My understanding from the county level is that there is definitely interest at the county level to have a mountain-wide sustainability coordinator position. There is interest from us as a town that kind of serves this unincorporated area to really be involved with not just sustainability projects in our town, but with kind of our general mountain community, and to be able to build a full-time position, somebody that can be really doing projects that are going to affect a lot of people and not just the 700 homes that are in the town of Nederland limits. So how's everybody feeling about us moving forward with this discussion? And is anybody else interested in kind of helping take the lead on starting these discussions?
I think that this is, I think it would definitely be worth the time to reach out and find out if other mountain towns would be interested in collaborating in some way. I just don't feel like I have the time to volunteer to do that right now, but I completely support, having somebody else who does have the time. I think it's definitely worth it. To just kind of get a temperature and any opportunity to reach out to our neighbors and see where they are and, how, if they would be interested in collaborating and what their needs would be. To Garrett's point, I think it would be interesting to find out what they're working on and where they're struggling and where their struggles may be similar to ours. And especially since the county's already said that they have interest in having a mountain coordinator. So I think if we started doing or continue to do the legwork for them and made it as easy as possible, that there's a higher chance that they would approve a position in the future. I'm just sorry I can't help out right now.
I have to basically say the same thing. I think a regional approach is important, and anytime you can offer someone full-time employment, you're going to have a more stable position. And just so you guys know, I think I'm going to try and hang in there for the December meeting, but I have already resigned. Because, I can't help with these things when I'm in Sitka. And that just makes me feel homesick. But I think you guys are making, we're doing good decisions. So I want to support the group until we can find someone to replace me.
Good luck, Liz, in all your travels.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you, Liz. But you're coming back at some point, right? We'll have you back on the board in 2 years.
We're sorry to see you go, Liz. You're really an asset, I think, to this group.
Thanks for all the time and energy that you've put in. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Laura, Constance, any thoughts on moving forward with a discussion about what a mountain-wide sustainability coordinator could look like?
I'm basically in the same boat as Hunter, where I totally agree it's a worthy thing to pursue, and I think having somebody full-time would really help in recruitment. Although I don't know if we'd be ready to make the decision already. I guess this might be like a next year type of conversation, but yeah, but I can't commit to it right now. But I'm happy to support on an ad hoc basis however much I can.
I'm not sure I have much of a comment on it. I think it's worthwhile to learn what the other communities nearby, what their needs are in terms of sustainability, and just see where the partnerships might be. It's, I don't know. I'm a little unsure about it. I would like to learn more about the specifics, I guess. But anyway, it's not something I would volunteer to do, but I can. I think it's definitely worth learning what their needs are and where the synergies might be. I wouldn't be super comfortable asking them for funds, generally at this point, without a very clear idea of like how can we help each other? How would this work? Because we're taking money from other needs of those communities. So for me, it would need to be a little more clarified, which is why I think that learning what their needs are and where they stand and what they're working on and what their successes are is absolutely a great thing to do. To me, it seems a little premature to ask them for money, but I also get that the conversation's gone on for a long time, and it might just be a learning curve for me to understand. But maybe just an update kind of on like how can we help each other? I can see that it would be useful to have a full-time sustainability coordinator. I'm just trying to understand more of the details, I guess, before I form a full opinion of how to go forward with it. So I'm kind of digesting. So that's where I stand.
And I think that's the point, Laura, is like we're not quite sure how it would all work. And so I think that's really what would be key, is really understanding the needs and brainstorming with them on what programs could overlap. You know, we did Solarize Nederland. It doesn't mean we can't do a mountain solarized program, right? With all of these communities, we could do a bulk purchase for energy efficiency. You know, we can get a contractor or a whole group of contractors and do energy efficiency for low income families in the mountain in the mountain region. But yeah, I think just figuring out those communities' priorities and how we might be able to sort of leverage those priorities to help each other.
I totally support that. The part about asking them for money, I guess I would just have to see specifically, a little bit more specifically, how we would be able to partner in a way that's useful in that way. So I think finding out the needs, all that, the first step there is perfect. I think that's a great way to figure out a next step after that.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. I don't think the grant money is the way to go. I think that'll be a huge turnoff to a lot of these communities. I think it really needs to be funded by the county, like a normal person would be, like the sustainability grant has done really well. Like, that's why they keep offering it. Why are we going to take it away? Yeah, those conversations should be really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I don't think it's ideal to go off the grant funds,
Right.
but that's kind of the only option we had to start this conversation with. And when we initially wrote the grant for Garrett, we had this conversation. So, over 2 years ago, and we were talking about this with Ford, and we had a call with the county specifically about this idea. And that was kind of the only money we had on the table at the time. And I do feel like the conversation may have shifted. I mean, it sounds like Boulder County would be willing to put in certain, whether it's resources or benefits towards this position. And I do wonder if we had more time to flush out exactly what all these communities needed and went back to the county, we may have a different response from that now looking a few years later.
I agree. That's kind of what I'm thinking, is that if we can get on the same page with these other communities, then we have a little bit more negotiating power to go back to the county and say, beyond just benefits, this is what we can bring to the community that will be a benefit to the county in general. How else can you guys support this? Because the idea would be that if we pool all our resources, we get more of a benefit, right? And so instead of having to put all of our 15,000 or whatever each community is allotted towards this position, we could coalesce together and fund this position somehow. And those, each different community can choose how they want to fund it. I think the issue comes when we can bring unincorporated Boulder, like a group of folks from Eldora and a group of folks from Gold Hill, and say, we want this position to be able to service these people as well. That's when we can kind of negotiate with the county and get them to pitch in more than just benefits to this position and really make more use of it.
Yeah, I wonder like population, versus, unincorporated population versus local government populations. Like how does that work out, right? Is it going to be majority unincorporated, or, is it the other way? So that might be worthwhile to look at, to present that to the county.
Are the people that we're talking to at the county the only people we can talk to? Could we take it to the county commissioners if we did get a partnership and say, hey, here's somebody from Gold Hill, here's somebody from unincorporated, here's somebody from Ward, here's somebody from Nederland, and just show up and say, we want you to create this position for us. We don't want to use any sustainability grant money. We just want, here's how many people it would represent, and then let them negotiate down from there. I don't know if there's someone else we can talk to at the county. And I realize a lot of people have worked on this for a long time, and I don't have all the background, but so I'm also just kind of listening and learning.
Matt Jones, he's a member of CC4CA. He's a Boulder County Commissioner. He might be receptive. I don't know. I don't have a relationship with him, but perhaps Alan might. Erica might. That might be a communication channel.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation, Garrett. I can reach out to Matt. I think let's do a little bit of let's circle back around with these communities and see where they're at.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've talked to anybody, and I know the pandemic's been pretty tough. And so maybe we could circle back in 6 months or something, Laura, and see where we're at as far as gathering where these communities are at, and then reach out to a county commissioner like Matt Jones. I think that's a great idea. And it, in the grand scheme of things, this position is not going to cost that much money for the county, and it could have a lot of benefit. When I think about this, even with the Boulder County Matching Grant Fund, I think about, okay, so let's say, some community applies for an upgrade of their wastewater treatment, or whatever that is. Well, if we could take that money and hire a coordinator that could write a grant for that, and all these other concerns in their community, kind of that upriver idea, right? So the trickle down effect might be greater than a $15,000 project once a year. They could see $15,000 from one grant and they could benefit from 4 others. Again, that's, idealism, but I think about that as well. You're just pooling our resources and just really increasing the benefit for all of us. So long as we're all invested and every community feels like they're really getting what they need.
If you need contacts from various communities, Erica, please let me know. Gold Hill. Oh, there's one person from Gold Hill on our zero waste subcommittee. A friend's mom lives in Gold Hill and she's really involved with sustainability. So yeah, I'll happy to. Lions, obviously, I know folks there. So yeah.
Hey, Garrett, if you don't mind sending me an email with people that you know, and even active people in unincorporated, I think would be great too. And I know Ken. I don't know anybody from Allen's Park.
I do. She used to be the Louisville Sustainability Coordinator. She works for the town of Lyons. She's super awesome.
Cool.
I can put you in touch with her. She lives in Allen's Park. She's like a realtor as well there. So yeah.
That'd be great.
And Bridget, Green Girl, she's well connected in the mountain region. So I'll give you her contact.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Questions? Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, Erica, let me know who you want me to reach out to and who you'll be reaching out to, and we can kind of tag team that and talk to some people, and then we'll come back to SAB and let them know how that all went. And the next thing on the agenda is our continuation of our bylaws discussion. The major kind of sticking point that we had been discussing was the residency requirement for SAB members and whether we wanted that to be in the bylaws. And if we don't have residency requirements in the bylaws, how we, present that to the Board of Trustees. So I think at the last meeting, we didn't really have consensus on what we wanted that to be. So maybe we could just go around individually and kind of say where we're at on that stance now, and see if anybody has shifted, if we still don't have consensus or what that looks like. So I'm just going to go down the roll on people who are on my screen. Laura, what are your feelings regarding the residency requirement?
So I would not word it as a residency requirement. I would word it as a majority of members being residents. I think everybody kind of knows my position on this. I did do some research and I called, Lyons and Louisville and a bunch of other municipalities, and I really couldn't find anybody else who has sustainability boards that don't have a majority, or in some cases just like the whole everyone has to be a resident. That's not what anyone here is proposing, but that's my opinion. And I think everybody's already heard my reasons why. And so there it is. If we vote on this, we don't all have to agree, I guess, in the end. But that's just where I stand on it. And I have not shifted. So thank you.
Hi, all. I wrote a document this afternoon. I was thinking about things, and and I reviewed the old bylaws and the proposed bylaws, and I sent that to everyone by email, but I'm not able to figure out how to share that document with you guys right now. I proposed earlier a decreased ratio of one board of trustees member who has to be a resident, another Netherlands resident. So I'm proposing a 2-to-4 ratio rather than a 3-to-3 as a compromise. Because similar to Laura's opinion, because it is a town board, I feel like there needs to be town representation, but I also do not want to exclude members of the community who are willing to put in the energy. You know, even in our current board, I have to say that the people who live outside of Netherlands put in a tremendous amount of energy, and I want to recognize their efforts, and I want them to feel safe that they're going to continue to have positions. So that's why I am recommending a compromise ratio for moving forward.
Thank you, Liz. Hunter.
I like the idea of a compromise ratio of 2-to-4. And I thank you for your kind words, Liz. I appreciate your support and understanding that as a board member that lives outside of the town of Nederland, you know, I really do want to contribute to the town, and as somebody who works in Nederland, you know, it means a lot to me to be able to give back, and I would like to be able to continue my service. And I feel like although being a resident is important, I think that, you know, there's a large number of community members that work in Nederland and spend a lot of time there, and they should not, they should have the opportunity to volunteer and contribute if they have the time and energy and want to do it. And I don't think that the board should be exclusive. So I like the idea of a compromise in doing the 2-to-4 ratio over the 3-to-3. And I would support that.
All right, Constance.
I lean more towards Laura's position on this, and so I'd prefer having the 3-to-3. Just that there's a majority of in-town people and I wasn't part of the discussion last time, but my my thoughts on this haven't changed from when I wrote to you, Miranda, and reviewed the bylaws. And it's not to exclude people, it's just because it's a town board. So yeah, I think we would definitely welcome out of town people to contribute, but I think it just makes sense to keep a majority of in-town people.
Erica.
Making some notes here. So thanks everybody for your opinions, and it's obvious that you all care about this board, which I think is the most important part. So there's only a few positions that are available to people outside of the town limits on boards for Nederland. And that is 3 positions for the ProSep board. The DGA, you must have to own or lease property for business in the town limits to be part of the DGA. And the Planning Commission is not available to people outside of the town limits, similar to the BOT. We don't even have an option to run for those boards, and there's been a discussion for a long time about adding 2 or more positions to the BOT to give unincorporated Nederland residents voice. The history of the subboard was initially designed without a residency component for a reason, and I think that's important to keep in mind. I also want to just remind everyone that before virtual meetings, we would often not have quorum. And so we wouldn't be able to have meetings because people were not able to attend and wouldn't necessarily give notice that they weren't able to. And so I think putting a residency component in it is actually going to potentially limit our impact. And that makes me really sad and concerned. And I know that based on historical data and experience just with my time and even folks before me. So what I would like to suggest is putting in our bylaws that we recommend to prioritize residents and sustainability experience with our members, and that we actually put the onus of who is on the board to the BOT, which is where it currently resides. And they already do prioritize residency. And so we don't have to necessarily have it in our bylaws to actually vet people on where they live when they apply to the SAB board, but actually give that responsibility to the team. I think it could get tricky if we have people resigning. What if we had, a whole board of really active members? And let's say, Liz is a town resident and she's resigning next month potentially. And if that would then mean that someone else that was really interested in that position, very experienced, lots of knowledge, could then not get on the board because we had to have someone in town to take that position. I just think it gets tricky, and I think as a volunteer board, I think there's an easier way to handle that. So my ideal would be to prioritize residency and sustainability experience and not have a specific number.
All right. And my personal thoughts are kind of going back to old SAB minutes, kind of as I was digging through things and looking at SAB bylaws that were established by previous boards. I don't think they were ever officially adopted by the BOT because there was some confusion about that between the board and town administration, but the SAB board had been operating under these bylaws, even though I guess they weren't official. And the idea that they were pretty explicit that they didn't want to include a residency requirement in the Sustainability Advisory Board because it was pretty much a given that of course you're going to prioritize people that are in town, but that we also have a large community that lives outside of our town borders that has a lot of good sustainability expertise, and we didn't want to deny that just because of a geographic boundary, I think. So I'm kind of leaning on that side of things, which leaves us with 2 people kind of in favor of the 3 and 3 requirement, 2 people in favor of the non-residency requirement, just giving it as a preference instead. And then there is this kind of middle stance, an attempt at compromise where we have just one other SAB member besides the Board of Trustees member, who already has to be a town of Nederland resident, that has to be within the town. And I think I'm not really sure where we want to go from here. If we want to vote on all 3 of those options, if we want to take some time for more discussion. I'm not really sure the best way to move next in this discussion, but we do have to have some sort of vote at the end to make a decision.
Can we agree to vote on this for the next meeting? I went through both the old bylaws and the current bylaws with the proposed changes. And in addition to the ratio of members, I think there are some other issues that we should consider. So could we agree this evening to table this issue again? And I'm just going to beg patience from the group. But I feel like we can find a place that makes sense and address everyone's concerns. It would just should have just a little more discussion. And I would urge all the members of this group to look at both the proposed changes and the old bylaws and come up with their own ideas about, could we make stronger statements about what we want? Can we include more groups in the community? Do we want to consider expanding our definition of sustainability? I think it's worth having another conversation, and so could we postpone the vote till next meeting?
I support that. I do think the responsibilities part of it would be interesting for everyone to look at too, because I think that the way the responsibilities are written as part of the bylaws is mostly advising the BOT on town matters, and I don't think that's really what this board exactly does. And so I think if we could expand the scope to be a little bit closer to what we are doing and what we want to do, the whole document makes a little bit more sense.
I think I asked that if we postpone the vote, that we have more of a structured discussion around these other components of it. I think that makes sense. But I also wonder if it makes sense to talk about a compromise. So, of those middle folks, which way would you lean? Would you prefer the 3 and 3? Or would you prefer, 1 and 5? Or, if there's any wiggle room, and see if we can move forward that way, just so that we don't have to vote today, but just so that we have more of an idea of kind of where the compromise might be.
Well, I think we should consider the makeup of the body and also the group's responsibilities, and then also my concerns are for participation in the group, because I feel like I've only been a member for a short period of time, and I couldn't contribute physically for a lot of it because of my own circumstances. But I think moving forward, we could define membership in a way that doesn't leave the in-person participation and the boots on the ground, more or less, to just a few members, but to make it a clear requirement of the group that you have to attend meetings. If you can't attend meetings, you must inform the group ahead of time. If you essentially no show, no call, and are not present for a meeting, that we have means to say that's not okay. And that everyone comes into the group understanding that they will be engaging with the public and doing in-person responsibilities moving forward. And you know, while I say that from a long ways away, that I do want to just remind the group that I did resign knowing that I couldn't. But I know that that's an important part of moving forward for the group, is to not only come to the meetings, but also put yourself out there and talk to people.
Yeah, I really appreciate that point, Liz, because it is a big part of what we do as far as outreach and communicating with our residents in our community.
Well, does everybody have access to that document of the bylaws that Miranda sent out? I think it would be great to have people get some comments in there and some questions, and that would help me really be able to know how to frame a discussion at the next meeting as far as what the different points of question are, the different kind of edits that people are thinking about, so we can kind of go through them. And I'm okay with bringing this again at the next meeting. I think it was Miranda's hope that we could bring all of the documents together, but I believe that we still have time to talk about it again at the next meeting for that to happen, right?
Yes, actually, Planning Commission isn't going to be done with theirs until January, so you've still got plenty of time to work through this.
I just want to make sure I have a copy of the document that was emailed to me at the end of October. The one I'm looking at is not a Google Doc, but it has the redlining. Is that the one that we're working off of?
Well, I think this is the one that Liz, you said that you tried, you weren't able to send that. Is that what I heard you say earlier?
So I'm trying to share my email from before right now, but I'm, you know, not good at this stuff.
So I didn't get that email, just an FYI.
It says I'm sharing, but I don't know if you guys can see what I have.
We can see your screen, Liz. I think Laura's asking that this then be emailed to everyone.
I did email it earlier to the SOB group.
So I know we've been having some issues with our listserv. So will you send it just to me, Liz?
Sure.
And then I can, for some reason, I can send out to everyone, but you can't send to each other. Or we're working on it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you guys can't get in there and make comments and send back a doc, feel free to just make up an email with your comments and send them either to me or Miranda, and we can get those looked at before the next meeting. All right. Does anybody have any other specific things about the bylaws they wanted to bring up? Okay, and so the last thing on our agenda is just any other items or board updates, things that you guys kind of might be working on, things you might be interested in working on. I know, you know, it's the holidays, so we're all kind of busy, but it would be good to get kind of everybody's brains churning on what we could do moving forward, such as, Erica and I will kind of follow up with other communities, but then there's also the discussion of a renewable energy subcommittee. We've got Hunter working with, zero waste and that subcommittee, and how do we really kind of bring more people into the fold? What other kind of projects can we tackle? So if anybody has any other updates or items they want to bring up, now would be the time. And then after that, we'll adjourn.
This is Hunter. I just have a quick zero waste subcommittee update. So Garrett was nice enough to send us a list of 31 action items that he gathered from Boulder County Zero Waste Action Plan and Boulder County Zero Waste Scorecard. The group has asked for the town, or for us, SAB, to prioritize this list so they can know, like, we can narrow it down to like 2 to 3 main messages that we want to convey to residents. So we have our zero waste subcommittee meetings every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of the month at noon. So if anybody would like to join, Miranda said that she would be nice enough to join us this coming Wednesday. So thanks, Miranda. It's an open meeting. You guys are all invited. We'd love to have you. And then also we're having a table at the Mountain Holiday Market, December 3rd through 5th, basically to increase awareness about waste diversion in the community and to share some resources. That's it.
Hunter, that's all fantastic.
Thank you. We're trying. If anybody's interested, just let me know and I'll shoot you the link to the meeting on Wednesday, or you can also email me. Thanks. And thanks, Garrett, for all your help. We're going to miss you. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it.
Thanks, Hunter.
I do have more. I'm sorry. I know we're trying to end this meeting, but
No, go for it.
share that list of the 31 items and then to the SAB board. I mean, I just don't know how we should prioritize those 32 items or 31 items. Is that something that should be like an agenda item in December, or is that something that I should share with the SAB board and then you guys, everybody prioritizes on their own, and then I just collect the data and then bring that to the next meeting? How should we handle that?
Yeah, in the past, when we were kind of prioritizing what our goals would be, this was a few years ago with different SAB board members than we have now, but that's basically what we did, Hunter, was we all kind of prioritized the list ourselves and then came back together with that compiled data and said, does this look good? So basically you rate your top choice with a certain number of points, the second choice with a little bit less, etc., and then put that all together and try to come up with the group's combined score. So I think that might be a good way to go about it, especially with the virtual meetings. It's so hard to have like a real discussion. So if you could send that out to everyone, and then everybody can kind of rank those 31 things for themselves, and then send that back to Hunter, your kind of rank score. Then Hunter, you and I can kind of go forward and figure out how to combine those all. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I'll send that out to everybody. Thanks, Melody.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of meeting virtually, Miranda, what's the latest as far as being able to meet in person?
So we've hired a contractor that I'm meeting with on Wednesday to turn hybrid. So it's really going to kind of be dependent on how long it takes him to create the hybrid system we need. I'm anticipating like a month to 2 months at the most. And then you as a board can decide if you all come back together in person or if you do kind of half and half. SAB, historically, and some of you don't know this, SAB did not meet in a formal setup. You will have to now for hybrid to work. So you'll sit in front of microphones and the room will be set up like a board of trustees room. That's the only way to make hybrid work. So maybe January.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Does anybody else have any other items of things they want to bring up, topics, things they want to put on the next agenda? All right. Then without further ado, we will meet again next month on December 20th, right?
Yes, Monday.
All right, Monday, December 20th, and we'll adjourn at 9:09 p.m. And thank you all for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Garrett.
Garrett.
We'll
Bye,
miss
Garrett.
you.
Take care. Have a great evening. Please reach out if you need anything. Bye.